If you've ever felt bloated for seemingly no reason, if you've ever had trouble healing symptoms or losing weight despite doing everything right, or if you've ever felt frustrated with doctors telling you your labs are normal when you know something isn't right, this episode will change everything for you. For part of our Winter Arc series, where we are bringing you all of the inspiration, motivation, and information to achieve your Winter Arc, I'm joined by functional nutritionist Micaela Riley. She's about to blow your mind on what's really going on in your body when you can't lose weight, your hormones are off, or you feel like your metabolism is broken. Michaela has one of the most powerful personal healing stories I've ever heard. Her health crashed in her early 20s despite following all of the wellness rules. And then, when no doctor could give her answers, she became her own advocate and dove deep into the world of functional medicine. Now, as a functional nutritionist, she runs a thriving practice helping women heal what conventional approaches typically miss. And in this conversation, she's walking us through the exact steps that she took to get her period back, to heal her thyroid, to get rid of chronic bloating, and to finally feel good in her body again. In this episode, we get into the labs your doctor probably isn't running but should be, the real reason your body might be holding on to weight, and how to lower inflammation, balance hormones, and support your metabolism without crash diets or overexercising. And if you're navigating holiday stress or food guilt right now, Michaela's advice on enjoying the season without sabotaging your health is so grounding and refreshing. This is the kind of episode that you will want to re-listen to and send to your group chat, because it's not about another diet, it's about finally feeling at home in your body. Welcome, Micaela Riley, to the Every Girl podcast. You've been super open about your own health journey and what led you to functional nutrition. Can you take us back to the moment that you realized that conventional approaches just were not working for you?
I really started to feel like a stranger in my own body is honestly the best way to put it. I was doing all the right things, working out for hours upon hours. I was counting calories, like doing all the diets, doing all the things, and my body was just not responding. I was dealing with hair loss, bloating, chronic fatigue, and I was going to all these doctors, top specialists from all these really well-known hospitals, and they were just telling me the same thing. You need to work out more, eat less, go back on birth control, here's some medications. And it just wasn't really solving any sort of problem for me. And I felt like I was still struggling with all these symptoms despite being thrown all these kind of band-aid solutions. And no one could really tell me, like, here's what's going on and here's why, which was really frustrating. And then, of course, I'm like already working out so much, eating so little, doing all the things, and then also being told that I wasn't doing enough. It was like this awful mental cycle too that I was stuck in. Ultimately, I decided that this was not normal, especially for being so young. So, functional medicine really wasn't a thing, 15 years ago when I was really in the thick of my symptoms and struggling. Functional medicine, Instagram was not really into all this stuff as it is now. So I just, started researching. I would honestly take a lot of my labs and research all the markers. Like, why is this high? What is going on with this? Because I was so desperate for answers. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it was really getting the slew of functional lab tests that I got done, like really in-depth hormone panels, really in-depth gut microbiome analysis, full thyroid panel to identify that I had all these things going on inside my body, despite all these doctors just telling me that everything was normal when it was very not normal. So obviously throughout my journey, I feel like I went through this for a reason and I felt the need to have to share it. And obviously I became so obsessed with all the things that I learned and experienced. And I was just so fascinated by almost doing opposite things of what traditional doctors had told me. And that's when I started actually feeling like a human again. So then I, got certifications, started educating myself as much as I could. I know the biggest things that made the biggest impact, and I can really help steer people in the right direction because I did so many things wrong first.
And I always say, like, we should all be our own guinea pigs, like, try everything for yourself. And you are like the best example of quite literally being your own guinea pig and then figuring out what works for you and what doesn't and helping other people be their own guinea pigs and work through their healing. I think so many people relate to your story, especially as women. We often go undiagnosed for years. We're told, "Oh, that's just how it is. Sorry, that sucks," or "That's normal," or "Your blood panel that we tested, everything's fine, so must just be how your body is." Like, we're told these things over and over. So I think it's even amazing that you knew to question that when it wasn't very mainstream to do so. What exactly were your symptoms that you knew, okay, I'm being told that this is normal or it's fine, but I know this isn't normal?
Definitely the weight perspective and the weight gain that I experienced. As women, we're all very, aware of our bodies, which I think is a good thing. But that was something that I immediately noticed because obviously, being so young and clothes start not fitting in the right way, it just becomes ultra concerning because, especially in that age that I was in, younger women are even more so hyper aware of their bodies, I would say. So that's something that initially I was like, "Oh god, this is something that I've never dealt with," and I was so young, and I was, like, having to do all these crazy diets and work out all the time, and, like, my friends were doing the complete opposite, so that immediate experience and just, like, recognition that I couldn't do those things, and my body was having, like, a completely different response. But yeah, the weight gain was definitely number 1. Number 2 was the chronic bloating that I dealt with. Like, I literally looked 6 months pregnant bloated. That's where I went on, like, a huge rabbit hole of, like, "Why am I so bloated just waking up and drinking water?" And Reddit comes up with all these things, and then I'm going to my doctor because we didn't have Instagram to show, someone like myself going through this. I went to my doctor and I was like, "I think I have SIBO," and she's like, didn't even know what that was. Which is, yeah, mind-boggling, but
Wow.
she was more or less just like a pill prescriber. "Hey, I wanna take this," and then she'd just, like, prescribe it. But long story short, chronic bloating, gut issues, I felt like I couldn't eat normal things, and I was eating super clean too, but that was, like, almost making me more bloated the cleaner that I ate, I felt. And then the 3rd one was chronic fatigue. I was also working out a lot and just not feeling my body properly. So that I think has a huge factor into it. But I also had developed Hashimoto's, which is where your immune system attacks your thyroid and then kind of slows down your thyroid function overall, which can create a lot of fatigue, hair loss, slowed digestion. I was, like, falling asleep at my desk, like, I couldn't make it through a full day of school and just kind of that foggy brain when you're really tired all the time, you can't form full sentences, it feels really hard to have good conversation with someone. So, yeah, those were kind of the 3 things that I was like, "Okay, I am very young, I'm working out all the time, I'm eating clean, why am I experiencing all these things that someone that's really unhealthy would experience?"
Especially when you feel like you're like, "I'm doing everything my doctor's telling me to do." I mean, now we have, thank God, a lot more understanding of hormonal health and, that we,
Yeah.
especially as women, shouldn't always be starving ourselves and going so hard at the gym. Like, now we have more understanding of that, but especially at the time, it's like, I am going super hard at the gym every day. I'm eating super clean. What the hell is wrong with me? And it's
Yeah.
so frustrating and you feel so alone. I know for you, the first step was really getting a lot more extensive tests than had ever kind of been suggested by your doctor before. Can you talk about what those tests were, especially for women who are listening right now, see themselves in the place that they were, to know kind of what you did to identify what's going on and what you found through those tests?
Yeah, great question. So, 3 tests specifically that I really felt like gave me a lot of clarity and answers. One is the Dutch test, dried urine test for comprehensive hormones is what that stands for. These are 3 tests too that I run in my practice. Obviously, I know that they made a huge impact for me, so I know the importance and value of them, but the Dutch test is really good for looking at your sex hormones, so estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but it also takes it kind of a step further and looks at all the intricate hormonal pathways, detoxification, methylation abilities, which might help explain certain cycle symptoms, mood swings, bloating, puffiness, because it also looks at cortisol and your stress hormone. How is that firing throughout the day, not just one moment in time. And then also how you're metabolizing certain hormones, specifically cortisol, which can kind of point to different symptoms, signs. So that was a really big one for me. I discovered I had really high cortisol levels. Obviously, I was stressing my body out to no end. And it had actually depleted a lot of my primary sex hormones and kind of caused me to not have a cycle for like 3 to 4 years. A lot of doctors were just running like minor things in labs, like a couple of markers, and that's where they were just like, "Oh, everything's fine, everything's fine." And then we started running cortisol and some other things, and they were like, "Oh, this is why you're not having a cycle." I also discovered I had PCOS through the Dutch test and an ultrasound, but the Dutch test was kind of like the first step to show me, okay, these hormones are really elevated, which is likely PCOS. And then I ended up getting diagnosed shortly after. But yeah, the Dutch test was really great for hormones, stress levels. And then I did a gut microbiome test and found out I had SIBO. I tried all the antibiotics, I tried the whole treatment route for that. Ultimately, really starting to regulate my cortisol levels helped heal my gut long term. Cortisol has a huge impact on your gut microbiome, and as much as you can manage that, the better your gut has a chance of actually healing, and I didn't realize that. So, as I started to kind of address cortisol, my gut was able to heal and obviously not deal with debilitating bloating and all of that. And I went to so many gastroenterologists before I got the comprehensive tests for my gut microbiome done, and they were like, "Yeah, everything's normal, everything's fine. Just take Miralax for the rest of your life." So, that was test 2, and then test 3 was just really more comprehensive blood work. For so long, my primary care provider was just running very, very basic panels, and I even go back, like, sometimes because I still have access to the patient portal, and I look at the labs, and it's definitely there are markers that are on the high and low end of range that were never flagged to me, which is not shocking because, I mean, they're looking to diagnose extreme diseases, but, it's obviously frustrating, especially imagining how many other women are struggling with the very same things, but nothing's being, looked at or flagged to them. But nonetheless, it was way more markers and just understanding my full thyroid function. And that's where I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism. I had lots of inflammation and just different markers that were off with my metabolism through more comprehensive blood work that most primary care doctors won't run. And sometimes they're also up against, insurance policies, which that's like American medical system for you. This person doesn't need this, although they might, but that's just the way that it's designed. And yeah, so unfortunately, like I'm sure doctors might want to do these things too, maybe a really good doctor, but sometimes they're up against what the insurance providers will let them do, which is doesn't make any sense that, like, a business person someone who doesn't have any medical background has more say over someone who, like, knows medicine,
Oh my
but
god,
whatever.
no. And especially, I always think, like, wouldn't it save insurance companies more money in the long run
Yes,
to be able to get
be
people
per
these more preventative things?
I know, yeah, but that would
Yeah.
make too much sense, right?
It would make way too much sense. It is a really good point though, like, I sometimes worry on the podcast if I come off a little, like, anti-doctor, and I
Yeah,
really have nothing to do with doctors, it's the system. It is the
yes,
doctors that are trained in the system, it's insurance, all the other patients they saw today, like you said, are dealing with a blood cancer and they only
yep,
have 15 minutes to get to this person. And like it has
yeah,
nothing to do with the doctors. It's the system that we're in that is not helping people diagnose these things that were so normalized. Like, oh, sorry, normal though. That's just how your body is. Come back when you have a real issue. It's
yeah.
just our system that makes it so hard for these symptoms to be diagnosed and for these symptoms to heal.
Yeah, I agree with that too. The more I educate myself and have learned over the years, obviously there's really good doctors out there and it's no shame or shame. I don't think I received good doctor treatment, which, I wish my experience was a lot different. But I know there are really good doctors out there and they wanna advocate for their patients, but just like you said, I mean, they have 15 minutes to meet with, like, 100 people, and then somebody else is dealing with something very extreme, so this issue doesn't seem as prominent and, they're just kind of in and out and they see so many people, so it's hard to be, like, super specific, and they're very much trained as, "Okay, we see this problem and ailment. Here's the medication for this." Like, that's literally the copy paste. I do think the wellness community just in that same conversation has stepped a little bit too far off medical research, like what the research is showing. And I think that's something that's really important is if you care about women's health, you should care about research and the progression that we need in that space. So I think sometimes the wellness community, which I don't really associate myself with like the super crunchy side of things, but I hope that we don't lose sight of like the importance of needing to research women's health because it is so important. And we really don't know much about women's health.
And trusting the experts, trusting the
Yep.
researchers, the lead doctors, what they're saying. I agree. We have kind of it's a little scary out here. We're
I
moving
know.
away from that, and it's scary. I'm sure
Yeah.
someone who's, like, in the thick of it, I'm sure there's a lot of fear-mongering even with the patients that you see and things that I'm sure you're dealing with on a regular basis.
Yes. Yeah, exactly, and I think it's just the overload too of kind of this new, like, health coaching era, which I think is super important in what I do, but also we need super educated people in my space that are, like, looking at the research and really understanding what they're teaching and posting and doing. It's kind of frustrating from my perspective too that I see people ignore the importance of all those things.
I mean, we're definitely in the era where people are getting their health information from TikTok, like, they're getting all their advice, and that's obviously a very scary thing is if people have a symptom, they're not necessarily going to message their doctor first, they are going on
Mess
TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're seeing what other influencers if they wanna lose weight, they're seeing what influencers do to lose weight, not medically backed,
Yes.
research backed insight, and that's a very scary thing, but I think it also speaks to this feeling of a lot of women, especially women, not feeling heard in
Yeah.
their healthcare.
Yeah. So it's like this tricky situation. I totally understand. And I think it's like it's super important too. I always say this because I get so many questions on Instagram, TikTok, whatever with, hey, I feel like I have the same like symptoms and situation as you are posting and showing your kind of transformation like that's me. I always say every person in health situation requires context. It's impossible to be like okay, this girl's dealing with bloating. It's the same exact reason why this girl is dealing with bloating. There's a multitude of reasons why both of them might be experiencing the same exact symptoms, which is why more comprehensive testing is so important. Focusing on that would cut out so much noise that people feel overwhelmed with when we're talking about social media and all the symptoms and things that are being posted. Like, kind of go back to the basics and get more information and data on your body first before like going on this whole rabbit hole of, oh, let me try this supplement and protocol that this girl did. And then it might put you in a worse situation that you're in, which is where following some of those things could be dangerous in certain situations. But yeah, really understanding your personal story and data is super important.
Yeah, like going to your body, doing all these tests to know that your body is the expert. Like you're basing your supplements, your routines on your body versus it worked for this person on TikTok, so it must work for you. I love how your focus is testing first and that we have all these amazing tests that help us understand exactly why our body's doing, what it's trying to communicate with us that we didn't have 10, 20,
Yeah.
30 years ago. Like we're so lucky to have those. So finding out from the test that you have PCOS, hyperthyroidism, SIBO, for you, do you understand those things as being all connected or did they feel like three separate issues that you were working on individually?
I always say this too with my clients even, it's really hard to pinpoint and even any researcher or scientist would tell you this too. It's really hard, especially when we're talking about autoimmunity. I mean, there's still several research articles that are being published on potential root causes of these things, or what is the catalyst of creating these antibodies towards certain autoimmune conditions, but that research is probably never going to come to like an exact conclusion. So it's really impossible to pinpoint certain things. But I always say, because I think this is very true for my story, is just the whole timeline of events that happened before kind of the storm of symptoms is likely what I think was the catalyst for autoimmune disease, hypothyroidism, chronic gut issues. And I do know for my specific situation, birth control, antibiotics for like a long time at a really young age to get rid of acne, and over exercising and under eating, fluctuations in hormones and different things with the immune system likely triggered the storm of events that happened later. I didn't really notice it immediately, but then slowly over time, it created a big issue. Also, genetics play a significant role in everything, and everyone's genetics makeup is completely different. But I do think, like, a lot of the health history, especially with a lot of the women that I work with, a lot of women that tend to struggle with all the symptoms, all the diagnoses, and all the things, their health history story is like so long. You know, it takes a whole Word document to type up all the things that have happened with different medications, dieting habits. Those women really struggle with more health ailments than someone who seemingly kind of had like a normal upbringing and just kind of a normal life, if you will. So yeah, it's really hard to like pin. I wish it was like that. That would make everything so much easier, but of course it can't be easy like that.
Of course not. Never's that easy for sure.
Yeah.
Which I actually think is I'm sure you find this, like, I think it's actually an amazing thing. It's so easy for us to think of like, I hate my body. I feel so disconnected from my body. My body has so many issues. And I, for myself, felt for a long time like I hate my body so much. I feel so disconnected from it. Instead of what an amazing thing that our bodies are talking to us. And it's not this quick fix that we have to get in the weeds to really understand our body. I think anyone who has gone through a healing journey similar to you have, you're working on identifying symptoms, it really comes with a lot of like this deep connection with your body that you have to have. You have to get really used to, what is this food telling me? How does my body respond to this person, to this thing at work? Like, how is my body responding? I think that is, I guess, just to put another perspective on it of like, maybe it's not this awful thing of like, it's so hard. Diagnosing is so difficult. My body sucks. It's like your body's doing everything to allow you this deep connection with it in order to communicate. Is that what you've experienced through your healing journey?
Yeah. No, I think your body telling you all those signs and symptoms is definitely super important and helpful, I think, on my healing journey. I mean, obviously, that was the catalyst for me to kind of know immediately that, oh, this isn't right. I completely agree. And I think, too, it's hard when you're in the thick of your healing journey to have a positive mindset because, again, as women, we're also hyper aware of our bodies and different things because social media is also very tainted. And don't compare yourself to anyone else on social media, but unfortunately that's something that everyone's on for hours a day and it's impossible not to. But yeah, not being so negative about yourself and your situation and trying to shift those negative thoughts into positive thoughts can be super helpful for kind of getting to the end of your healing journey without making it so dreadful too.
Yeah, yeah, it like helps the body in its healing for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you started going on, I wish I had a different word for healing journey because it sounds so cheesy,
Yeah.
but you were able to find these diagnoses of PCOS, hyperthyroidism, SIBO. What was kind of the first things that you remember doing? Because I think for a lot of people, when they finally get the diagnosis, it's like, phew, I finally figured it out. But then it's like the battle hasn't even started yet. Like healing is the
Yeah.
hard part. So, like for someone who's going through something similar or having similar issues, get similar diagnoses, what should kinda be the first steps?
I can kind of think about 4 significant things that really helped me on my healing journey. One was addressing cortisol issues. Everyone always wants to know, how do I reduce my cortisol levels? For me personally, I was way over exercising, under eating, and not paying attention to good circadian rhythm health or balancing out how much I was working out with recovery. So I completely shifted my workouts to very low impact to get my cycle back ultimately. And then also just to obviously help reduce cortisol levels completely. So that was kind of step one. And then step two was addressing my gut issues. Like I had mentioned, I went through a very long gut protocol, which required different supplements, dieting techniques, and stress management ultimately. But I had tried antibiotic treatments. Really did it all. So diving into kind of a more intensive approach after getting that comprehensive GI map test done, I went through kind of a customized protocol, and ultimately, again, I think the cortisol was really playing a deep role in my gut issues and the bloating. So, synergistically, those two things were working in tandem to reduce bloating and inflammation, weight, all the things. Three was really supporting my hormones through different supplementation because I had no progesterone. My androgens were really high with PCOS. So, taking certain supplements and optimizing my nutrition was really important. Obviously, if you're not eating enough, like hormones cannot be created. So, going through different periods of increasing my calories intentionally to help kind of reboot my metabolism, if you will, is something that I did. Obviously, I always say that's not going to be the case for everyone, just eating more. So that's super dependent on kind of what you're currently consuming, what your workouts look like, and all of that stuff. But for me, I was working out like a true athlete, but really not eating enough at all for like a toddler. So it was just like this huge energy imbalance. And then last, but certainly not least, was focusing on blood sugar health and really understanding the importance of that, especially with PCOS. My blood sugars were kind of all over the place, ultimately from dieting my body into the ground. That kind of disrupted insulin and blood sugar, which caused a lot of bloating, inflammation, but also with PCOS, since blood sugar and insulin are so interconnected with that condition. As you start to balance insulin and blood sugar, that further helps manage some of those PCOS symptoms, regulate your cycle, balance your hormones. Those are kind of like the four highlights, and really honestly applicable to most health issues. And honestly, what I see most of the time with the clients that I see, with the caveat of I do work with a lot of like perimenopause, menopause women, and their healing journey is a little different because they have no hormones in some situations. But for the most part, your average listener probably is going to benefit from focusing on those four pillars.
When you say, switching to more low impact exercise in order to get your cycle back and even the changes of eating more food, I would love for you to talk about what exactly that looks like because I think some people listening are like, what do you
What?
mean the way to be healthy is to work out less and to eat more? Like, I
Yeah,
think that this is going to rattle people because it's so
yeah.
opposite than the information that you had when you were trying to be healthy before. So, like, can you talk about what that really looks like? Like, what exercise did you do for how long? How did you eat more? What were you eating? What does all that mean?
Ultimately, when I started, like, first coming into figuring out, that I had all these symptoms, I was doing a ton of cardio. I actually taught group fitness classes at the time. I ended up quitting because it was just I couldn't heal without not doing 2 spin classes a day, and that was, like, my job at the time, so I really had to evaluate what was important to me, teaching classes or getting my cycle back. So when I first got my diagnoses, I decided to quit teaching group fitness. But like I said, I was doing like 2 spin classes, lifting weights on top of that, probably working out like 2.5, 3 hours every single day. So I was working on a ton, and it was mostly cardio driven workouts. So pulled out all of the cardio that I was doing, mostly that just like high intensity interval training. I pulled that out, Probably for a few months, 3 to 4 months, something like that, I just did walking and yoga, and I kind of got into different at-home workouts. For the longest time, I honestly couldn't even step into a gym because I was, like, so triggered by not being able to move my body the way I thought I should be. So I kind of took a step back from the gym. I was like, I'm just going to work out at home, take it super easy. And I did that for a few months. Ultimately, got my cycle back pretty quickly, honestly, once I kind of just slowed down the workouts. But through that time, I was reverse dieting as well, which is where you slowly walk up your calories by like 25 to 50 calories per week, but it's split across ideal macro split, meaning like 30% protein, 40% carbohydrate, 30% fat, which is pretty normal average macro split, and anti-inflammatory, high quality diet. But that's kind of what I was doing, is slowly walking up my calories. I was eating about like 1,300 calories. Like I was eating very, very low calories, lots of protein powders, energy drinks, because I like couldn't stay awake and I wasn't really focused on quality of food. So I started really focusing on whole foods diet and then slowly walking up my calories. It definitely helped a lot with, like, honestly, I was able to start seeing more muscle tone on my body and lose a lot of inflammation. I got my cycle back and just had more energy throughout the day because my body wasn't fighting a fight all day long. But that can be a really helpful technique if you're someone listening and you've been doing a really low calorie diet and you're not seeing any muscle definition, you're dealing with like constipation, low energy, that can be a sign that your metabolism is actually slowing down. And sometimes feeding up can be helpful. There's again a multitude of different caveats to that. Just anyone following that formula might not respond in the best way possible, but definitely the right candidate for it. It's going to help put them in a better place long term. But yeah, essentially that's what it looked like. And then after I had my cycle consistently for a couple of years, I kind of got back into the gym with lifting weights. Still never to the degree that I used to, but I do enjoy, lifting here and there. And I think now, with being in every fitness era that has ever existed, I did just Pilates for like 2 years. I've done everything, every single fitness trend that you could possibly imagine. I have tried it all. I honestly like doing a mix of everything now, and I feel like that has given me the best body comp and also just the best mindset when it comes to fitness. Like, it's not totally dreadful. I keep it interesting and fun just based on what I want to do. I mostly do weight train like 3 to 4 times per week and then integrate Pilates and walking, and sometimes I'll do like a jog if I want to as an enjoyable thing. I try not to put any too much pressure or structure on myself with that, just because my like history of being so obsessive with certain fitness trends, I feel like has consumed my being, that I'm like, okay, I just need to enjoy this and do what I want to do.
And I love how much for you stress, I mean, for you, for everybody probably, like stress was such a root cause of so many of the issues that you were dealing with. And unbeknownst to you at the time, your idea of wellness was putting stress on your body. It was actually making it
Yes.
worse. I love how much you talk about that because it's such an important point that I think a lot of our concept of wellness is actually making our bodies less healthy because we're putting this pressure on ourselves. We are creating more stress. The purpose of wellness is just to make you feel good. And most of people's wellness routines is just adding more stress to them. So I love that you kind of how to counteract that in order to heal yourself. I think that's such an important piece that we don't really hear a lot is I healed my body by exercising less and eating more. Like, sadly, I think that's so revolutionary.
I know it seems so. I think as women, we've always been taught less is more, and you need to eat less and move more. You're just eating too much, too many calories. That also is based on a lot of research done on men, and that is like the only way to lose weight. So yeah, I think obviously as women it's super frustrating, and then layer on like the whole menopause and perimenopause conversation. That's like a whole nother beast in and of itself, which there is like literally no research on. But we know as functional providers that there's a whole slew of things that can happen with hormones, and the metabolic effect of that is really significant. So there's a whole nother can of worms with that.
Most of our listeners are in their 20s and 30s. So, like, starting at this point, getting to really understand your body, getting to
Yes.
understand your own hormonal health is obviously amazing for you to feel your best right now. But especially going into that phase, getting into
Anti-aging.
perimenopause, menopause, right? We don't really have to hate our lives and like feel so shitty. These skills of listening to our bodies now will help us out in the future as well.
Yeah, I always say that and see it really in practice. A lot of women that have had really good habits of lifting weights, building muscle, moving their bodies, eating a clean diet, just doing those foundational things. Once they hit that hormonal transition where like really everything starts to change again, they go through that transition so much easier versus the person who has kind of not really had those good habits. They've done a ton of cardio, they dieted their bodies into the ground. They struggle tenfold than the person that has done the good habits. And yeah, it's really hard, especially at that point, once you're kind of already in it, to reverse all those habits that you haven't done. So yeah, if you're listening and you're doing all those things, you're putting yourself in the best place possible for longevity and anti-aging and just being able to actually enjoy that period of life a little bit better than someone who's maybe not paying attention to their health.
And doesn't know the skill of listening to their body, connecting with their body. I know
Yeah.
you talk a lot about root causes. In your practice, what you've seen, what do you think is like the most overlooked root cause that's secretly behind so many common symptoms?
I kind of alluded to it, genetics. The more I'm kind of in the weeds of different health issues, genetics really do play a huge role. There's a huge advancement, especially like a lot of the health conferences and stuff that I'm going to, like genetic testing is going to be the next big thing, or at least that's what the experts are saying. And the researchers are saying is testing your genes is really where you're going to find the key to live the longest and have the best results as you age. Genetics do play a key role and we can't ignore them either. There's a lot of things that you can do. I mean, all the foundational things that I'm talking about are one of the biggest things that you can do to help support whatever your genetic makeup might be. I do think stress is a huge one, but it's also I try not to put that label too much on like, "Oh, you're just stressed out," 'cause, I feel like everyone is in that boat just a little bit, but I do know that, like, overexercising, undereating, and the common stressors that women put themselves in is a huge root cause of different health issues. Yo-yo dieting in that same conversation is a big one. Women that just follow every single diet, really constantly restrict themselves and then jump to another diet like that. I see a lot rather than someone who's having a very diverse diet and not having all of those restrictive habits really doesn't seem to struggle as much as someone else. So yeah, those would be the few things that I would say as like a root cause, but the genetics thing will definitely be like mark my words, probably in the 2026 is going to be the year of genetics. I think.
Wow. It's
Yeah, I think it's
fascinating.
super fascinating, especially as, like, all the technology is advancing in health always. There's really some fascinating information that just testing your genetics can help provide different information that obviously you're not getting at your primary care yearly checkup or whatever. When we're talking about probably your average listener too, that's, like, doing all the right things and like maybe still struggling. Obviously, there's a huge percentage of Americans that are not eating super healthy. Their metabolic health is really poor. But I think the people that invest in health coaching, they're not sitting on the couch eating Doritos and Oreos. They are doing all the right things and their bodies are just not responding. So it goes a little bit deeper than just eat cleaner.
100%. Yeah, because our bodies are not a calculator. There's hormones, there's survival
Exactly.
mechanism. Like there's so much more going on there that is a lot more complicated than just eat cleaner and exercise more. And this
Yeah.
is so important to talk about. So, question about genetics, because that's fascinating. Does that mean like even non genetic issues, like if your grandmother had PCOS, you're more predisposed, or like how do we actually apply that to an everyday patient?
So there's actually a really good book. It's called Dirty Genes by Ben Lynch. And he has, like, a whole quiz in there too, like, again, a free resource if someone's listening and kinda wants to learn a little bit more. There are genetic tests that you can take, and the beneficial thing about that is your genes don't change, so you can usually test once and, like, you're good. There's a multitude of different genetic panels that you can take that are focused on different things. I use the Pro 7 genetic panel in practice, but essentially kind of telling you different genes that you might have SNPs in or like genes that might not work as well that could impact neurotransmitter production, for example. So this person might be more prone to anxiety, depression based on the way that their genes are. So there are certain supplements or dietary changes that you could take to help support how these genes are working or not working to help better support your system rather than just, oh yeah, take an SSRI. There are those things that can be present that can really tell someone, okay, here's what you can look at and you can do. That's just a very small example, but there's genes that impact hormone balance and detoxification, digestion, immune system issues, like the list goes on and on. So knowing those patterns can really help create a really good protocol long term of here's the consistent factors that you need to support as you move forward in your health journey. It's pretty intricate, but the book is a really good place to start testing your genes. It's not like a 23andMe. I think people always get scared that it's gonna tell them something crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That you have a
They
second sibling somewhere, yeah.
yeah, no, it's not like that. But it is just super informative to say, "Okay, here's all the things that you can do to put your health in the best place possible." So, yeah, I've had a few people that are, like, scared to do it. I actually bought my mom one, and she, like, hasn't taken it still because she's like, "I'm scared." I'm like, "Mom,
It's gonna be
you listen to me."
fine.
Yeah.
But that's amazing that it's like our body has this blueprint for us almost of like,
Yes.
here's exactly what we need, what we're prone to, what to do. And again, kind of going back to the main point of like, health is really looking at your body and saying what you need versus what's the right thing to do that other people are saying. That is like really exciting. Like, what
Yeah.
cool technology that hopefully will become more and more accessible and normalized that we can all use that.
Super interesting and hopefully, yeah, it becomes a little bit more mainstream. Another big thing that'll probably be in 2026 for the health sphere is just pre-screening for preventative cancer diagnoses. I was listening to it was a news channel this morning and there's some lady that created a testing company. That's what they're doing is pre-screening people for cancer before you start even showing signs and symptoms.
Wow.
Which is yeah, like, huge. That is huge because that's a big thing, I mean, for the most overlooked cancer diagnoses is, like, not being screened and not being diagnosed until you're way into, like, stage 3, stage 4. So I think that also is huge for, again, longevity and information.
And how many lives that will save to be able to
Yeah,
just do regular screenings for things you might not otherwise have been looking
yeah,
at before,
yeah,
yeah. God, if
yeah,
anyone needed some good news today, that's some good
I
news,
know.
knowing what's
Genetics
coming.
and cancer screening.
This episode's gonna come out in the middle of November, so, like, getting into the holidays, a lot of people are unsure how to balance, obviously wanting to experience all the joy and whether it's the stress, sugar, alcohol, like, consuming more things, but also wanting to feel good, especially if you're working toward healing your body, healing symptoms, weight loss, whatever it is. How do we balance going into the season of the holidays wanting to feel good and support our bodies without wanting to restrict?
Really great question because I think also coming from a really restrictive background where I would skip out on those moments, I know how important it is to enjoy all of those moments with family, friends, and Yeah, it's just obviously really important to make sure you are saving time for that and not getting too wrapped up in all the health things that you just skip out on those things that are really important. But I always recommend being consistent with your health routine 80 to 90% of the time, and then the 10 to 20% you can indulge without fear of kind of reverting back to square one. And if you're consistent with those habits, 1 or 2 days in the grand scheme of 365 days a year, like, we're really talking about a very, very small percentage of that time. The biggest thing is getting back on the health grind after those holidays happen. That's where a lot of people struggle. But I think if you're making it a lifestyle, making a really consistent routine for yourself, focusing on nutrition, movement, different lifestyle changes, 8 hours of sleep, those foundational habits, it's gonna be really easy to just enjoy your meal and then get back on kind of your health grind. My top tips for kind of the day of festivities is focusing on hydration. Hydration seems simple, but super important. Hydrating really well, focusing on protein and fiber rich foods throughout the day. So let's say you're having like a really indulging dinner. Focus on not like, "Oh, I'm gonna skip breakfast and lunch so then I can save up everything for this one big meal." That actually is gonna put you in a spot where you feel like you can't ever stop eating at that one meal of the day, and you're gonna want all the sugar and all the things. So still eat consistently high protein breakfast, filter in lots of fiber throughout the day. That's gonna help curb some of those cravings and balance your blood sugar so that when you have that indulging meal at dinner, you can feel super satisfied after having a normal portion. You can have a drink or whatever, and it's going to feel like you're not totally just going all in. Digestive enzymes are super helpful to break down, digest your foods a little bit better so you can get rid of some of that post meal gas and bloat. Taking digestive support supplements throughout the holidays. I'm launching a supplement brand in 2026 that's specifically focused on gut health. So
Oh
I
my
wish
god,
it was here so I could
exciting.
get
I know. We needed
it will be
it.
I know. It will be literally the perfect product, especially during the holidays when you tend to eat things that, aren't in your normal routine, but trying to keep digestion in a good place. But digestive enzymes, probiotics, they're going to be super important to mitigate some of that uncomfortableness that you might experience. Going in with a positive mindset of, I'm going to eat consistently throughout the day, focus on hydration, take my digestive enzymes. I'm going to enjoy this moment with the people around me and not stress too much about the food. And then I'm just going to get back into my routine the next day. That's really the best approach that you can have if you're having the, oh my gosh, I need to like restrict heavily after this or before this and do all these dramatic things. That's something you want to step away from and maybe try a different approach this year. And I can guarantee it will be much, much better, healthier for your body and your mind.
Love those tips. It's so much like trust in your body is what I'm getting out of your tips. Like
Yeah.
okay, I can enjoy one day. I know my body is not going to freak out on me. I know my body is going to be able to detoxify what it doesn't want to use and take the nutrients out of what it does. And I trust that my body tomorrow is going to get back into it. And you're just supporting your body with these things. I feel like that's the biggest difference between the holidays that most of us have probably had that's like we are binging, we feel like shit, we're restricting. It kind of
Yeah,
goes through the cycle. It's hard to get back into any healthy habits afterwards. I think that's the biggest difference is like you just trust and respect your body, and that makes all the difference in the world.
I completely agree. I think also after like missing out on so many holidays because I was just afraid of dumb things, it's so important to me now. And I see the importance in like family connection and having those moments with friends and not being so wrapped up in the health and wellnessy stuff of it all is just, yeah, so important for your
Yeah.
mental and emotional health and even your body. And then, yeah, it's always going to be there. Your health routine is always going to be there. Just get back on the train and get a partner to do it with you. That'll make it even easier.
Okay, Michaela, we're going to wrap up with some rapid fire questions. A food or supplement that is massively overhyped right now and one that you think is underrated.
The overhyped supplement, I think, is those little green gummy bears, the groons.
Oh, yes.
Not a fan of those.
I
And
feel
then
like
what
gummy anything really, like, why are we having
I
gummy
know.
bears? Most of them have sugar. I don't know about those specifically,
I've
but
gotten
yeah.
s That's, like, the number one question from my clients recently is, "Do I need to be taking those gummy bears?" I'm like, "No."
No.
What? Um, Underrated supplement, phosphatidylcholine, that's, like, kind of a weird one, but that Body Bio PC is amazing. It's really great for mitochondrial health, so your cells. I think it's underrated because it's so applicable and helpful for every single person, and everyone could benefit from some cellular health. So Body Bio, PC, I'm not sponsored by them or anything.
I talked to the one of the owners of the company
Oh,
and
really?
like, learned all about the cellular
Yeah,
health. It's
she's great.
fascinating. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
amazing. If someone only has 10 minutes a day to prioritize their health, how should they spend it?
If I only had 10 minutes per day, I would definitely. I mean, it sounds simple, but focusing on walking, getting in steps in every single day, I think that's overlooked. Daily steps are so important. You might not get 10,000 steps in 10 minutes, but going for little walks throughout the day, getting some sort of movement in, that's what I would focus on.
Fill in the blank. If everyone had this one habit, it would change their life.
Sleeping 8 hours every single night.
Oh, such a good one and such a hard one that a lot of people aren't
I know.
doing.
I did not do that last night because I had to get up at 4 AM, and I'm definitely feeling it.
Yeah. You don't seem tired, by the way. You've been amazing.
Good,
But
good.
it's so necessary. I mean, my God, 8
Oh
hours
my
is
gosh. It's
needed.
in so important.
Best advice you've ever received?
I guess really just, uh, in a nutshell, the lab testing that I got done in my health journey, that I feel like that's not really advice, but that was the best information I could have ever received.
Yeah. I think that is advice of, like, test your body. Know what's
Yeah,
actually going on in your
just
body.
test, don't guess. That was my
Test, don't
best advice.
guess. Last question for you, a book, movie, or show that changed your life?
Beyond the Pill by Dr. Jolene Brighton. That one is amazing if you're trying to understand your hormones, birth control, getting educated on all the things there. That book is incredible.
That's an amazing resource, and I love her. She's amazing.
Yes,
I love her.
and yeah, she's the best.
Okay, where can everybody find you, and can they work with you? Are you taking on new clients?
We are taking on new clients. You can find me on Instagram, Be Balanced by Michaela. I have my website linked there, and then also on TikTok, YouTube, all the things. But yes, if you're interested in testing or just want help or have a question, I'm always happy to help in whatever aspect I can. So definitely reach out. Thank you so much for having me. I loved our conversation.
Thank you so much. It was so fascinating. Hearing your healing journey so tangibly is, I think, so helpful for so many people that like see themselves in you. So thank you so much for sharing all that with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I sure did. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really makes a huge difference for our show so we can keep growing and bringing the content that you love. If you want more info, you can find us at the Evergirl Podcast on Instagram or theevergirlpodcast.com. Talk to you next week.